Did you know that Instagram has 1 billion monthly active users? 1 billion. 1 billion monthly active users. So I know you're thinking, okay, there's 1 billion monthly active users. How on earth do I stand out amongst all of those people? And that is a really good question. And that is the question for today's video. I'm going to be sharing my top tips for how you can stand out amongst that ridiculously big crowd on Instagram. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, then please carry on watching. I am not very well today. I just need to caveat this. I'm probably going to have to caveat this in every video I batch, but I've got a bit of a cold. So yeah, bear with me. I feel like you could probably hear it. My voice is really like nasally, but whatever. It's not COVID. I've taken several tests, but just want to flag in case you're wondering, why does Jade look like she's dying? Because I am. Okay, so I'm going to get straight into the tips today. And the first tip I'm going to give you for standing out amongst the crowds on Instagram is probably a bit of a controversial one. Not even probably, I know it's a controversial one. People disagree on this all the time, but this is what I believe, and I'm just going to go for it and give you this tip. So my first tip is to have an aesthetically pleasing feed. Now, the reason why I say this is controversial is because some other people who are also kind of Instagram gurus or Instagram experts and coaches don't necessarily believe that this is something that you need. And I think everyone has their own personal opinion on it. And I can only tell you what has worked well for me, what's worked well for my clients, but also how I act on the platform and how my clients and my friends and my colleagues, how they use the platform and the feedback that I get from them in regards to what actually helps a page stand out to them and what potentially convinces them to eventually follow these pages, right? So the reason why I feel like an aesthetically pleasing feed is something that actually really helps you stand out is because, as we've already established, there are a lot of different people on Instagram. There are a lot of active users every month, and there are going to be a lot of channels who are similar to you and post similar content to whatever niche you're in, right? Now, if you present that content in a really aesthetically pleasing way, so you've got a really great preset that you use across all your content, or you have a really great layout style, like my personal favorite is the grid style, I'll put an example here. But you have a really great layout style, which is enabling you to create a feed which is really cohesive and just easy on the eye. Now, when you're browsing different Instagram pages within a specific niche, if you see 4 Instagram pages which are all posting similar content, one of them has this amazing, really pretty feed and the other ones don't. The chances are that feed, what looks really amazing and really pretty and really aesthetically pleasing, that one is going to stand out for you. And I mean, today's video is about how you can stand out, right? And unfortunately, we still have this really annoying habit of judging a book by its cover. I know we're always told not to, but we do it anyway. So having a really amazing, pretty feed is usually going to help you stand out against your competition and potentially go towards you converting that visitor to a follower. Now, there are a bunch of different ways that you can actually create a feed which is really aesthetically pleasing. I could go out into detail about this and talk about this for hours, but for the sake of this video, I'll give you a few tips. Think about the layout in which you're posting photos. So previously I mentioned the grid layout. This doesn't always mean literally posting the exact same photo every other photo, right? A lot of people take the grid layout really literally, when actually it's most impactful when what you're doing is looking for visual cues for every other photo to help tie those 2 photos together. I'll show you an example of a screenshot from Orange Collective on the right. So this is probably going to be a screenshot from a while back because we used to be a lot better at it than we are now. But what you can see from this screenshot is that every other photo has something which is similar. So maybe the background is similar, or maybe the focal point of the photo is similar. So maybe it's like an up close and personal photo of myself and my other half, or maybe it's just a scenery photo. Maybe every other photo was taken in a park, or maybe every other photo was taken from our Paris trip and then the other photos are taken from Morocco. But whatever it is, there's something what's tying every other photo together. And because of that, it's creating a grid style feed, and that's what's kind of pulling all of our content together, in addition to a really kind of heavy preset which is all kind of orange, which relates to us being called Orange Collective. It all just goes together, it all works. Well, I mean, in my opinion it does, you might disagree, but that is an example of how you can create a feed which is a bit more aesthetically pleasing, which will hopefully help you stand out. My next tip for standing out on Instagram is to share your reels onto your grid. Right, you may not know what I mean by this, but basically when you create reels, you have the option to either share that reel specifically to your reels tab or to share it to your grid and to your Reels tab. Now, the reason why I think you should share this to your grid as well as your Reels tab is because of the recent announcements made by Instagram. Now, if you've not heard these recent announcements, I recommend checking out this video. I talk about them in a lot more detail. But essentially what happened is that the head of Instagram came out and was like, look, the data has spoken. People want Reels. People love to be entertained, and the most entertaining feature on Instagram's platform is Reels, right? So they're dialing up Reels, they're pushing Reels out, and Reels. So what that is it's telling me is that Instagram users like to view reels. If you are going hard on your Reels strategy, well done to you. Congrats. Very proud of you. But if you're going hard on your Reels strategy and you're posting these amazing Reels every other day and they're only going to your Reels tab, what do you think is going to happen when someone new lands on your profile and doesn't see any of your Reels? Because when you land on someone's profile, unless you've come from the Reels section, if you've come the normal kind of native way where you've just clicked on someone's profile, what you see is their grid section first. And even though you'll see that there's a little Reels tab there which indicates that that person has Reels, you don't actually get to see how many Reels you're posting, nor do you necessarily see them when you're scrolling down because they're not on your grids page, they're only on your Reels page, right? Now, if Instagram are saying that people want to see Reels more often, they love to be entertained, you are missing out on the opportunity to show this new visitor, hey, not only does my grid look sick, but I also post loads of Reels. You're missing out on your opportunity to really show those off. So that's why I think it's also it's a no-brainer. Like, it literally takes no additional time. So I don't see any reason for you not to be posting on both. Sometimes people don't like to post on both because they think it messes with their aesthetic, which links to my previous point, where it never has to mess with your aesthetic if you're smart about it. You can do your own covers for Reels, which I recommend that you do, whether that's a graphic or whether that's just a photo that you've taken specifically to cover your Reel. There are things that you can do which would help tie in your Reel post to your overall feed. So don't let that stop you. Side note to say that I'm really proud of how I'm doing so far. Well, I was like really in two minds as to whether or not to film because I thought I'd start sneezing or like my eyes would start watering, but so far so good. Hopefully I've not jinxed it, but I'm feeling good so far. My next tip for you for standing out on Instagram is to nail your bio, okay? This one's super important because essentially when people are browsing through Instagram pages and they land on your page, they need to know who you are, what you're about, what value you're offering straight away. You've got to communicate that in the most impactful and succinct way that you possibly can. If you're wondering, do I do that well? I recommend checking out my audits, which I'll link to in my description. I should caveat that at the minute there's a bit of a delay, at least a week, because there are so many orders, which I'm very grateful for, but they are like flying at the minute. I literally create these audits by hand. So I literally write up this 13-page PDF where I look at every element of your page, from your hashtag strategy to your content, to your feed, including your bio. And I have a whole section on your bio where I analyze whether you're effectively communicating your value offering and basically whether you're having the most impactful bios you possibly can. So if you would like an outsider's opinion, I recommend checking that out. But if not, and you don't want to hear my opinion on it, then have a look at your own bio and just critically analyze it. I'm going to link to a video up here where I talk about how you can actually audit your own page. I don't want to force everyone to buy my products if they don't want to. So if you don't feel in position to buy, then please check out that video. I talk about all these different things and how you can audit your bio in a bit more detail. But in a nutshell, to stand out on Instagram, you need an impactful profile photo, you need a bio which accurately describes what you do, what you're about, and what your value offering is, and you need a nice, great link in bio. Just because you have a website doesn't mean you have to link only to your website. You can use a link in bio to aggregate different links to different sections of your website that you want to be talking about. Another great thing about a link in bio, if you're using one like Koji, my personal favorite, I'll put a link in the description, you can make it look super impactful, which is also going to help you stand out against your fellow Instagrammers. My next tip is one that I don't actually follow yet, which is hilarious. When I was prepping for this video, I was like, do I put this tip in here? Because I know it's a good tip, but I haven't started doing it yet, but I will start doing it at some point. And then I thought, why would I withhold valuable information for you just because I've not started doing it yet? That makes no sense. So my next tip for you is to make your posts bigger. So a few years ago, maybe 1 or 2 years ago, Instagram updated their formatting options so that when you post on Instagram, you could actually post in a bunch of different specs, right? So specs just mean like measurements. Now, the thing is with that change is a lot of people didn't really clock onto it, and people only really utilize the full length and the full width and length of your Instagram posts that they now allow when they're posting photos of themselves, right? People don't often use it when they're posting things like graphics. And by people, I mean me. I still use the good old 1:1, which is like the square, for all of my posts. And the tip here is to stop doing that and to actually use the full width and length that Instagram allow you to use. Now, by doing this, what this means is that when someone is scrolling through their home feed or scrolling through, you know, when you click on your explore feed and you just scroll through it, if you're using the full width and length, your post is going to take up almost their entire screen, which means that you do not need to share that screen with anyone else. What better way to stand out against your competition than to actually quite literally take over their screen space? Like, it is the best way to do it. So the maximum aspect ratio on an Instagram post now is 4 5, which when you break that down by pixels, it's 1080 by 1350. Now I'll put a little graphic so you can see what I mean there. So that is the maximum size that you can actually upload a photo in on Instagram. I recommend use it, still some screen space from your competitors. So the next and final tip I want to give you for today's video is actually one that I've discussed in this video, and it's basically called my content layering technique. Now, in this video, I discuss it in the context of different growth tactics that you can use on Instagram, which is going to help you grow in 2021. In today's video, I'm obviously using it in the context of how you're going to stand out amongst your different accounts on the gram, right? So how you use this technique in general and how to stand out against your other people on the gram is essentially by uploading carousels, but by being really strategic with the order in which you upload the content on your carousels. So the first photo that you want on your carousel is supposed to be your attention grabbing photo. Now, usually in my examples, I talk about a photo of yourself or a photo of a person, because usually as humans, we are attracted to photos of other humans. That's what makes us stop scrolling. But for you, that might be different. Like, I work with clients and sometimes they're like, actually photos of my products do better than anything else. Or I don't know, photos of my dog, which I completely agree with. I would more likely stop scrolling for a dog than I would for a human. And photos of my dog actually do really well. So figure out which type of photo or what content actually lands the best in terms of grabbing people's attention. And usually the metrics for looking at this are things like likes, right? Real vanity shallow metrics. But if I'm honest, if you're trying to figure out which of your style of content captures people's attention the most, it's probably likes, because likes is what stops them scrolling and where they can really quickly give a double tap to signal that they've appreciated that content. So figure out which of your content grabs your audience attention the most, and then place that at the front of your carousel. You then want to layer the rest of your content based on what else is going to retain their attention, what's going to keep them interested, and then you want to conclude with something that's going to basically be a call to action. Now, within that, what also works really well is if you use something what's shareable, like a quote, because that is something what people are likely to share on their stories, and that's going to help you get more reach that way. But for the sake of this video, standing out amongst your competitors, start being creative with how you layer your content, because it's going to help you stand out against your fellow Instagrammers. That is it for today's video. I made it without sneezing once. I do have more videos to record, so let's hope it goes okay. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this interesting, then I recommend checking out this video. It's all about different Instagram myths, lies, and just misconceptions that I'm going to be debunking throughout that video. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in my next video.